Hey guys, I'm Mark,
I'm Alon.
and welcome to another episode of The Next Man Up. Well, welcome listeners to another episode of the Next Man Up podcast. We're so excited that you have joined us, and we've got a fun and interesting and engaging topic to wrestle with today. But before we get to that, let me bring in my colleague and partner and friend Alon. As always,
Hey,
it's good to have you. Good to have you on the mic.
Oh, always good to be talking with you, Mark, my friend, compadre, amigo, brother from another mother. Oh man, there's so many good phrases I can throw out right now. Rice and beans. This is great.
Yes, it is good. I enjoy the chemistry and you know, of course, that was something that we explored and continue to explore as we go down this path.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I was thinking recently, just listening to other podcasts, other styles, other ways that people use this medium called podcasting, and was taken back to when we started. It was with the hope of just creating a conversation and
Yes, sir.
creating space to talk about issues that need to be talked about, to share our opinions, our stories, our experiences, our ups and downs, and then also invite the listeners to go with us and to contribute as well. And so we're evolving and we're growing here, but I think we're continuing to maintain this goal of let's talk, let's discuss. You know, in some respects, we're modeling what we're doing here. We're modeling for fathers and sons to be able to do together as well. And I expect our topic today to be no different. You know, we wrestle through some thoughts and share some opinions, and we just have a discussion about it. And anyway, I guess all of that to say, before we get into the topic today, we just welcome feedback. We welcome questions. We appreciate the engagement from you listeners, and would love to hear your thoughts on this episode, on previous episodes, on different ways that we can engage with you on topics and questions and issues that are relevant to fathers that are in the mix, trying to be better and trying, like us, to raise up the next generation of men of character and men of faith. So whether it's feedback at thenextmanup.com, our email, or on social at thenextmanup1, we would just welcome your engagement and love your input.
Absolutely.
Okay, so with that out of the way, with that said, as our longtime listeners know, I am always looking for articles and articles to represent the dialogue that's happening out in society around manhood, masculinity, fathers, boys, just that broad topic. And so I'm always looking for interesting articles, and I came across this one a while back and instantly piqued my attention and interest. And I know based on our pre-show conversation, Alon, it has piqued your interest as well.
Yeah.
And we'll put a link, as we always do, we'll put a link to this article in the show notes. But the article is called, essentially, Is an Alpha Male Camp the Answer? And it highlights a camp in China for raising up what this camp leader believes to be real men. And if you get into the article, and we will, what you find is that China is experiencing a boy crisis, a masculinity crisis, a manhood crisis, in the sense that they're asking the same questions that we're asking societally here. What does it mean to be a man? What does a man look like? What does a man act like? And a gentleman in China has pushed back on where he sees the culture going, and he's created what he refers to as alpha male camps that are targeted to help boys to become quote unquote real men. And so that's what we're going to get into today. Alon, I'm curious, just before we get into specifics, what your overall reaction was as you were scanning the article, reading through it.
Well, I mean, I had mixed emotions. Let me start there.
No surprise.
As I read through, at first it was like what are you doing? Then it was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Then it was like, no, that doesn't make sense. Like, that doesn't fit at all. And then there was some, I definitely had some feelings, for, like, I don't know, I wanted to stand up for justice for, the males that this guy was like against, which is like the younger generation. Like I feel like he's helping to widen the gap, so to speak. But then I also feel like, hey, he's doing something.
Yeah.
Like most people aren't. You know what I mean? At least he's doing something.
Right.
I don't agree with his tactics, but he's doing something. And then I felt like some feelings for justice for the older generation. I want to back up just a second here, because like, I think what I had to do was is what I'm going to encourage readers. If you read this article or if you listen to this podcast, so here's this guy, this coach, they call him, Coach Tang Haiyan is his name, Tang Haiyan. And, if I'm not saying the name right, please forgive me. But he came to California, actually. He came over to the States, to California, and he watched a training camp of a professional football team. And it inspired him, because he saw that this is how American, like, males are being, like, raised, and that he saw that moms of these American males were excited because they were growing up to be men. And so he catered this whole, like, coaching camp based off of a national football team. And that machismo kind of attitude, like grit, grind. I'm tough. I'm hardcore. I'll run through any blockade. I'll accomplish anything. I am successful. I make lots of money at my job. Like, he based this whole training off of an American football team. So I had to get that in my head. Like, okay, why are you, like, there's one instance where he has these little 7-year-old boys out in 14-degree weather, taking off their coats and their hats and their shirts, so that they're shirtless, and they're going to go for a jog to a local park, 14 degrees outside. And I was like, what? That's one of the areas that I was like, what are you doing? Like, why would you do that? And as I looked, I'm like, okay, so I think what you're trying to do is teach perseverance. And as I go through the article, I'm like, okay, here, I think what you're trying to teach here is, like, responsibility. What you're trying to teach here is like you have to have quality in what you do. And, going on the line, and I'm going, I think he's trying to teach same things as what I'm trying to impress on young boys of our society. I just don't believe in the way that he's doing it. It's important. Like, for instance, it's important. I believe it's important to teach our boys how to persevere.
I agree.
I want to teach.
Yeah.
I think it's very important that we teach our boys perseverance. But what also is important is the avenue of which we teach it to them. Because while we're teaching one thing, other things are being caught as well. And so one of the things that these boys are catching is at least from this article, I could be wrong. Maybe this is not happening, but I know at least in my life and in talking with other men, like when you teach perseverance through the avenue of like, no, you have to toughen up. You have to. A man is like just you're macho. You're the
right.
alpha male. Like
don't cry, man up.
Don't cry.
Yeah, that language, right?
Like that language. Like what gets taught is men aren't supposed to cry. Men aren't ever supposed to be concerned about the road that is laid ahead. Men never fear. Men never have anxiety. Men do what it takes, and men don't need no help. And I'm sorry, man, that is not the message that I feel our boys should be learning.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. I cry. I'm not look. Whoever is listening across my town or across the world, I cry. I cry at movies. I will cry at Kung Fu Panda because he found his way. Like I don't like, you know what I mean? And that does not make me any less of a man.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah.
And so my initial reactions are so mixed, but then I have to stand back and see. I think he's actually trying to do, or he's trying to pass on some of the very same things that I myself and others are trying to pass on. I don't agree with the way that he's doing it because other things are being taught.
But here's the thing, this. So you and I can get behind the mics and feel comfortable saying we cry. I cry at movies sometimes too. I get emotional, and I'm learning of late, really learning what emotional intelligence really means. It's not just stuff it all down inside and ignore it. As like the more you can ignore it, the more intelligently emotional, more emotional intelligence you have. That they don't know, that's not true. You and I can say that, but at large, the general societal message, and it appears to be the case in China as well, is that's not what it means to be a man. In fact, the message is if you show any signs of weakness, if you show any sign of being feminine, if you show any sign of emotion, of fear, of any of that, then you are less than. And that is the general prevalent message in society today. And based on this article, it crosses culture. It's not just limited to English-speaking Western American society. It is also Chinese culture and Chinese society. And I am not fluent on Chinese culture or society. I know a little bit, not much, and barely enough to even be dangerous. But I do know part of what they are reacting to is the movement out of Korea that we know as K-pop. And I am familiar with the term, but I'm pretty ignorant on what it means. And until I got into this article, I didn't quite realize just how much toward the effeminate in appearance and in dress. I can't speak to the way they speak or the lyrics of the music, but part of what this Coach Tang is reacting to is this effeminate influence that K-pop has had on the Chinese culture. And now there are others with local Chinese people that are picking up this effeminate type of behavior. And he's like, well, this is not what it means to be a man. It's not good for our society. In fact, there's a quote in the article by a University of Hong Kong, I think it's professor or researcher somewhere. I don't have his position in my notes, but his quote says...
Researcher Zhang Jiawen.
Yes.
From Nanjing University School of Journalism and Communications. I think that's the one. Is that the one you're talking about?
It might be. I have maybe a different name, or I just don't know how to pronounce it right. But he says that the people are worrying that if Chinese men are so effeminate, then as a whole they will become a weak country in the future and can't compete. Essentially, there's an anxiety about the virility of the nation being harmed by those effeminate male images. So that is the feeling, that is the fear, I guess, that this Coach Tang is reacting to by creating this camp. And look, I got to tell you, this may be controversial, and listeners, you can tell me if you think so. But I have some appreciation for that perspective, because I look at some of that effeminate type of behavior, and while I'm saying with my words, the appearance, the outward does not make a man, I also am wanting to affirm gender differences and gender distinctions, and the more males become physically in appearance more like females, look, it creates some tension in me as well. And I don't know that this alpha male camp is the answer. I'm being truthfully honest here, that it creates a tension in me that doesn't feel like that's the right answer either. Because maybe here it is. It's still an outward appearance. What we talk about is inward qualities. And regardless of the outward, the inward qualities that we're about represent character traits of strength and humility and on and on and on. It could be that some part of the males are reacting to the NFL type of appearance, and the pendulum is swinging the other way, trying to redefine appearance, when in reality, the manhood needs to emanate from the inside. A place of wholeness, a place of secure in who I am as a man, who I am in my gender, and live out of that space. I don't know. Clearly, I'm working through this myself, but it's raising some of my own tensions of how I feel.
Yeah, man. I went back, dude. It was actually you were quoting Song Jiang of the University of Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And this brings up an interesting piece that jumped out at me too, Mark, was, I'm listening to like quotes from Tang Haiyan, and then I'm listening to he's an older gentleman. He was a school teacher, and he's watched boys in his society, I'm sure, and questions have rose up for him, and then like you said, with the K-pop influence in Chinese culture when it comes to boys, he's bothered by it and such. And so there is this piece of the older generation, not just in China, but like here in the States. For me, I've watched this. Like we have this thought of what a man is, and who a man is, and who can actually say they're a man based off of, traits that we feel like connect to manhood, right? And there's also the younger generation that has their thoughts running around, well, what does it mean for me to be a man? And they've watched the older generation, and they're like, I'm not quite sure you got it. I mean, you look at ads, you look at movies, you look at TV shows, you look at media out there, and you can definitely see that the older generation, maybe not all of us, but for the most part, we've been fed this thing that, it is an outer appearance. For a long time, I felt like I wasn't a man because I didn't have a beard. I wasn't tall enough. I didn't have enough muscles. I watched movies from like the 90s and 80s, early 2000s, 80s, 70s. You take a look at any stream of media, and there's definitely a push that it is outer appearance. It is what you have in the bank. It is what you got in your your driveway or in your garage. It is the size of your home. It is the woman who stands beside you. You know what I mean? It's like, and I'm watching the younger generation. They're like, dude, no, there's got to be more than that. Like, I read, there's one quote from a gentleman. His name is Lee Chow. He's 21 years old. He makes $30,000 a month over in China. Right? He said, the whole premise of those comments, speaking of the older generation, is to judge someone based on their appearance, he says. But in modern society, he's talking about like today, where among his colleagues his age, you can't judge us for not looking masculine enough. How do you know we are not masculine enough? You know, so he's saying, like, you're based off of what you see of me, you think I'm too feminine because this guy makes $30,000 a month streaming live makeup application. He puts makeup on, and he shows people how to put makeup on.
I'm with you. I'm with you as you describe what he's saying, and as you read those words, and then I feel I'm being honest and vulnerable here. You start to lose. He starts to lose credibility in my mind when I realize he's applying makeup. His audience is primarily women. He's making a bunch of money, which
12 to 30, by the way.
Fine, you know. I mean, technology and YouTube and things like that allow that. It's not about the money. It's just that he's applying makeup.
Yeah, but he's also like, I feel like he's cracked open the door to something more than what us older generation maybe haven't seen yet or just latching onto. Like, he's saying, look, it's not about my appearance. So he's gotten on. He's trying to hold on to what is masculinity as well, and I think he's trying to find his way. And he's caught a little bit of truth because I believe it's true that it's not about appearance, but yet I feel like I'm like you. I feel a little slanted because I'm going, well, you know what? I don't wear makeup.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so what are you saying? It's based on appearance. Like, is it about the makeup or is it not? Is it about the appearance or is it not?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so, but he's trying to find a way. He's trying to come to some conclusions because I feel like for many guys, and even for me, like there wasn't really a good role model to run after when it comes to being a man. It's like there's this gap that's happening between the older generation and the younger generation, where the older guys are going, I got wisdom for you. Like, I want to teach you, like, responsibility. I want to teach you the ways of manhood, but our avenues of teaching it have been off. And the younger generation is like, I want to learn how to be a man, but, like, I don't think your thoughts of being a man is what really gels with my thoughts of being a man. But yet their way, for me, in my eyes, seems to be off as well. And this gap is continuing to widen. I feel like we need to find some commonality, like some connection together, and be able to feed off of each other. There's a lot that older men have to teach these younger men and these young boys about being a man. I think it's true. I think Tang is trying to do it the best way that he can, based off of like what he's lived and what he's seen. I just don't agree with it. But I think he's trying to do the best that he can. What would happen if Tang sat down at a table with this young guy, Lee Chow, and had a really good, honest conversation about being a man? What could Lee Chow learn from Tang, and what could Tang learn from Lee Chow? You know, like that's what I want to get to. Like I'm with you, man. I struggle with the whole makeup thing, man. My daughter's listening to K-pop, and it's sweet. It's starting to sweep over in the U.S. as well. And I'm like, look, man, I hear what you're saying. I don't know if I can necessarily agree with everything that you're saying.
Yeah.
And then I look at Tang and I go, I see what you're saying, but man, dude, didn't Hitler like gather the youth that way as well? And like, there's things that you're saying that I agree with, but the ways you're teaching, I'm not quite sure that's the best way to cultivate a boy into being a man. I just don't think it's the best way. But what if they sat down among the commonalities? of like, no, we do need to learn responsibility. And they focus on that inner man together. Like, how much more can we enrich each other's lives? How much more can old men dream dreams and young men see visions? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how much could wisdom be imparted both ways and our society grow? Because let's be honest, Mark. Let's just be honest. Like, us guys, we're us older generation. We're responsible for the Me Too movement.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I'm saying? We're responsible for that. We've helped breed that. You know what I mean? So we got to take a look at what way that we've been living as a whole and go, something's got to change. Something's got to be different. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, like I feel like the young ones need to step to the table as well and say, maybe I don't have it all together.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know what it means or what it takes to be a real man. And we gotta be able to come to a common place and be able to learn and teach each other how it is, so that we as men can move forward in our society in a whole lot better way.
So I think I agree with about everything you said, and just thinking about the generational comment, it takes me back to when I was 8, 10, 12, growing up in a fairly conservative, relatively rural environment, and long hair and earrings were out of the question. Not that I ever would have looked good in long hair or in earrings. But they were out of the question. And I don't know that my father ever said, men don't dress like that. But looking back on it, it was kind of implied, long hair and earrings are for girls. Short hair, no earrings are for guys. And there was even more to the whole earring thing, and maybe different episode, different time. But that was off. It was off limits. And again, conservative home, rural environment. Maybe that was unique to that environment. But that's not the case today. I don't feel like that today. So in addition to the generational thing, there's also the nuance of culture. And what is acceptable in one culture may not be acceptable in another culture. And as long as we're not breaking the moral and the spiritual laws, if you will, it's fine. Cultures are different. People are different. It's part of the tapestry and the richness of this human experience. But I think there's also this responsibility that we have to try to parse out the difference between a cultural expression and a miss, a whiff, an airball, if you will, in getting to the heart of what it really means to be a man and help this next generation to find their way. And, I will readily admit that I struggle with that cultural nuance piece, because I'm still susceptible to, but we don't look that way. We don't sound that way. We don't do it that way. And at the same time, I want to affirm gender differences, gender equality, but not gender sameness. I think maybe that's the most succinct way. But a lot of that gets expressed culturally. Go to Africa. We're going to find all kinds of things that men do in that culture that they don't do here, and vice versa. So back to inviting people into a space where you can discuss, where you can learn, we can realize that it may be time for us to do it a different way. I heard somebody speak this morning in a leadership conference. He was talking about millennials and millennials engaging the workforce in a different way. And millennials can often get labeled as lazy and soft and whatnot. But his take was, what if millennials are just saying, I don't want to do it that way anymore? Not that I don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it that way. I want to do it a different way. And so, as we are training up men, as we are looking into what it really means to be a man, what are the qualities? That's when we've got to parse out the cultural and the generational and get to meet, get to the heart of what it really is. Because if we don't, we're going to continue to put up expressions, whether it's the YouTuber that's applying makeup or American NFL football, and both of which have problems in that type of male masculine expression. They may be on different ends of the spectrum, but they're both potentially, well, certainly problematic on some ends. So how can we get to to the core and what really matters? I guess is what I'm saying.
I think it's going to take people just like setting aside like judgments, and going like being a little humble and dropping pride.
Yeah.
It's all the things that we talk about, but it really takes being a man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's bring around a rosy. It's like we got to be able to come to the table and be able to reach across the table and in a peaceful way. Not saying that we can't debate, not saying that we can't have different like thoughts about certain things and end up on different sides of the seesaw, but like we have to be able to come together and talk.
Yeah.
And so like for me, I'm really pushing reading this article, it just really reaffirms me like my pushback of my generation and older to not judge. And like you can have your thoughts and you can have what you think is what, but like if we come across as like having a wall up and set like concrete in our thinking towards the younger generation and not really coming with open ears and open arms saying like, look, I just think differently. Let's have a conversation. Let's try to do this. We're going to lose this younger generation, the younger generations. We'll lose them. And we'll miss out on an opportunity of helping them become, when we're talking about boys and young men, we're gonna miss out on an opportunity of passing on some really cool stuff to them to help them like really grab on to manhood with all that they can.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I could pile on and reiterate, but I think that's well said. I really do.
Yeah. Thanks. Oh man, that was a good article. That was a good topic.
It is a good topic, and I think we may be revisiting this one.
Sure.
There's perhaps more that we could pull out of here, or things that we have teed up that we could explore a little bit more. It also it makes me think of a book that I just finished that has to do with all the different masks that men wear, and generationally. We have kind of this know-it-all mask, and what does it look like to let that go and to admit that maybe we don't know it all, right? Like showing signs of weakness, and up to this point, we've been societally, gender-wise, we've been afraid to show weakness, and what doors could open up when we allow ourselves to be more vulnerable, when we show that vulnerability, and show that weakness, and how can that help us to become even better men, to become more manly, if you will, right? Not the macho manly, but the type of manly that really counts. Anyway, it's making me think about that book, and I know we're gonna get into that in a future podcast, because there's just so much good content there, but it all dovetails. And I think maybe the final thought is is wrestle with this, be open to talking with other guys, with other fathers, with your sons about this. Be open to engaging culture and asking questions and learning. And learning and listening for understanding does not equal affirmation or equal agreement.
Sure.
But if we can come into this with, like you said, trying to suspend judgment and being willing to talk and listen, we may find that we don't know as much as we think, and we can learn a whole lot more than we thought. And in the process, all be better off.
Agreed.
All right. Well, good topic, good thoughts. As always, Alana, I appreciate your openness, your wisdom, your honesty, and this one isn't over. But this is why we're in the mix, right? We're having this discussion, we're having this conversation because it matters, and if we don't, and not just you and I, but collectively, if we don't, then who will? And if we don't, then we're just going to continue to propagate the missing the mark for the generation that's coming behind us.
Agreed, man. Agreed. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate you, bro.
Likewise, man. Listeners, if you got feedback, we'd love to hear it. Chime in, feedback@thenextmanup.com. Hit us up on social @thenextmanup1. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, until next time, adios.
Adios.
Hey, listeners, thanks for journeying with us on this Next Man Up podcast. We would love to hear from you. Maybe you have a question or an idea, perhaps a topic for us to consider. If that's you and you want to reach out to us, you can get us at feedback@thenextmanup.com. That's feedback@thenextmanup.com. Again, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we'll see you later.